Hello, and welcome to this week's Invitation to Write. It is always important to keep the basics of writing instruction in mind as you move through the week. Encourage daily time to write and set expectations such as what the writing space should look like. Help students understand that writing is a recursive process that involves planning, drafting, receiving feedback, revising, and publishing or sharing. Finally, use mentor texts and models so that students can visualize a finished product. Keep nurturing your community of writers by writing with your students. Day 1. This week, students will explore persuasive writing. Before you show them the invitation to write, you might mention that persuasive writing encourages writers to take a position on a topic and to convince others that this position is correct. When writing to persuade, writers need to consider the reasons that support their position and how to organize those reasons to most effectively convince their audience. In the Students Lit Lab guidebook, they will receive this week's invitation to write and to move through the steps of the writing process. This week's invitation explains that architects often use shapes with straight lines to design buildings, but Zaha Hadid preferred to use the wavy lines and curves she observed in nature. Use the grid below to design a new building for your community using shapes and colors that you saw through your magnifying glass. Architects call these designs blueprints. Let's move on to the planning stage. Prior to initiating the planning activity, you might want to show the students examples of Zaha Hadid's designs. Then, in the space provided in the Students Lit Lab guidebook, have them sketch a design for a new community building. This week, they will use green grid paper to plan. Read the additional planning ideas aloud to them. How can trees, water, rocks, shells, stars, or the sky be the blueprint for a new building? What will the purpose of the building be? That building might be a recreation center, a school, an office, or a stadium. Finally, nurture the students' creativity and imagination. Model the process for them and share your drawing with them, and encourage the students to share their planning too. Next, students will move on to drafting. When it is time for the students to move from planning to drafting, have them use their composition notebooks. In their notebooks, they will describe their design and what inspired it, and they will convince a city planner to build it. Explain that other young architects can learn from them. When writing with them first, you could start the conversation with, I have an idea. I could build a recreation building that looks like waves. Everyone in our town will be able to use it. What are some ideas that you can give me to help me start writing? Then, model using the writer's composition notebook to draft. You can show the students your draft and read it aloud. Our town really needs a recreation center. My building would look like waves from the ocean. It would be on the edge of a small lake, and there would be a pool, basketball courts, and a gym. People of all ages could come to play, exercise, and swim. It would help all of us to be healthier. The city planner should help our town by building a new recreation center. Day 3. When possible, make time for feedback. On day 3, students can gather feedback from you and their peers. Have the students turn to the feedback guide located on the last page of the Students Lit Lab guidebook. Using the sentence and question stems provided, or those that have worked well for you in the past, have students ask others to provide praise, questions, or suggestions. You can also prompt students to focus on specific aspects, such as their ideas, vocabulary, design, and/or effort. After students have received feedback or have looked over their writing themselves, give them time to polish their pieces. If using the praise, question, suggestion protocol, have students focus on one suggestion from their peers to improve their drafts as they revise. You can model this process too. For example, the students might encourage me to add one more reason that the recreation center would be good for the community. Finally, on day 3, help students choose a section of their writing to share on day 4. Now consider the ways that students can share their writing with their peers. Students can choose to share all or part of their work, and of course, if students are not comfortable sharing, they are not required to do so. Use a designated space that signals the featured author, and have peers respond with finger snapping, clapping, or emoji cards. Writing is a joyful act, so be sure to make time for reflection. This is an excellent way to build students' self efficacy and identity, both as a writer and as someone who might pursue a STEM career. Questions could include the following. As a writer, what did you do well this week? What might you try differently next week? Which part of your writing makes you most proud? What did you learn about architects? Could you imagine yourself becoming an architect one day? Don't forget to capture the students' work, their words, and any wonderment and add them to the Wakelet. Finally, please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions.